It started with something so small that it would have been easy to ignore. The grocery store was quiet that evening, not empty, just subdued. The kind of place people visit on their way home, half distracted, already thinking about what comes next. Fluorescent lights, low music, the soft sound of carts rolling over tile. The narrator was there for a few basic items, nothing urgent, milk, bread, something quick for dinner. It had been a long day, but not an exceptional one. Just another stretch of hours filled with meetings, messages, and the feeling of being slightly behind. At the self-checkout area, a young woman stood a few steps ahead. She looked at the screen longer than necessary. Then she tried again. The machine made a short sound, not loud, just enough to signal that something hadn't worked. She glanced around, embarrassed, then looked back at the screen. Her shoulders were tense. One hand held a small stack of groceries. The other gripped a worn wallet. Behind her, the line grew. Someone shifted their weight. Someone sighed quietly. The cashier approached. "It didn't go through?" he asked. She shook her head. "I'm sorry," she said. "It should work. I don't understand." She tried once more. Same sound. The cashier waited, patient, but tired. "You can step aside and try again," he said. "I'll help the next person." Her face tightened. "Could you just give me a second?" She opened her wallet. There were a few coins. Not enough. No cards left to try. "I can put something back," she said quickly. "It's fine." She reached for the groceries, clearly deciding which item mattered least. This was the moment where most people looked away. The narrator felt it too. The instinct to stay neutral, to remain uninvolved. It would have been easy. After all, this was not their problem. Everyone had their own limits, their own budgets, their own fatigue. But the silence around the checkout was uncomfortable, not dramatic, just heavy. "I can cover it," the narrator said. The words came out quieter than expected, almost uncertain. The cashier looked up. The woman turned surprised. "No, really," she said. "It's okay. I don't want to." "It's fine," the narrator replied. "It's not much." The cashier nodded and waited. The narrator paid. The screen cleared. The moment passed. The woman stood there for a second, unsure what to do next. "Thank you," she said finally. Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. The narrator shrugged. "It happens." They left the store separately. No names, no exchange of contact information, no sense of a story beginning. By the time the narrator reached home, the incident had already started to fade. It had been a small thing, barely worth remembering. 3 days later, something unexpected happened. The narrator was at a bus stop, scrolling through their phone, when someone cleared their throat nearby. "Excuse me," a voice said. They looked up. It was the same woman. She looked different now, more composed, less rushed. She held a paper cup of coffee in both hands. "I hope this isn't strange," she said. "I wasn't sure it was you at first." The narrator hesitated. "From the store?" She nodded. "I wanted to say thank you properly. I didn't know how that day." They stood there awkwardly for a moment, unsure what the rules were for conversations like this. I wasn't upset about the money, she continued. I was upset because I felt like I had failed at something simple. The narrator listened. "I'd just moved," she said. "New job, new city. Everything costs more than you expect. I thought I had planned it well. That moment just caught me off guard." She took a breath. "When you stepped in, it wasn't relief I felt. It was permission. Permission to not fall apart over something small." The bus arrived before the narrator could respond. They boarded together and sat a few rows apart. They didn't talk much after that. The conversation had already done what it needed to do. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, the narrator started noticing similar moments. Not because the world had changed, but because their attention had. A man counting coins at a cafe, a woman rereading a message on her phone, clearly debating whether to ask for help, a co-worker staying late, pretending they weren't overwhelmed. None of it was dramatic. None of it demanded action. But it was there. One afternoon at work, a colleague missed a deadline. Not by much. Just enough to attract quiet frustration from the team. During the meeting, the colleague apologized several times. Too many times. The kind of apology that says more than words. Later, the narrator stayed behind. "If you want," they said, "I can help you catch up, just for today." The colleague looked surprised, then relieved. "That would help," they said, "more than you think." They worked together for an hour. Nothing heroic. Just shared effort. A pattern began to form. Not one of constant generosity. Not of becoming someone who always intervened, but of noticing when silence carried weight. One evening, weeks later, the narrator received a message on a local community board. It was short. "Free budgeting workshop this Saturday. No registration required." They almost ignored it, but something made them save the date. The workshop was held in a small room above a library. Folding chairs, a whiteboard, a handful of people. The woman from the grocery store was there. She waved when she saw the narrator. "I help organize this now," she said quietly. "After that day, I realized I wasn't the only one figuring things out." The session wasn't revolutionary. It didn't solve anyone's life. But it offered clarity, tools, a sense of shared struggle. As the narrator listened, something became clear. Kindness didn't always arrive as a dramatic gesture. Sometimes it arrived as timing. Sometimes it arrived as restraint. Sometimes it arrived simply as someone choosing not to look away. At the end of the session, people lingered. Conversations overlapped. Phone numbers were exchanged. The narrator didn't stay long. They didn't feel the need to. Outside, the street looked like any other street. Cars passed. People walked. The city moved forward. Nothing about the day would make headlines. But later, while waiting at a crosswalk, the narrator remembered the sound of the checkout machine. The brief pause. The choice. They understood something then. Most acts of kindness are not about changing lives. They are about changing moments. And moments, when repeated often enough, change the way we move through the world. The narrator didn't become someone who helped everyone. They didn't fix systemic problems. They didn't seek recognition. They simply became more attentive, more willing to interrupt their own routine when silence felt heavier than words. and sometimes that was enough.